Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bet Like No One's Watching podcast. My name is John Sullivan. You may also know me as Buffalo66 if you play daily fantasy. And you may know me from my Twitter page, Buffalo Hold'em. And also you can check out our podcast on Twitter at BLNowPod or on our website, blnowpod.com. And I'm back after a 1-week hiatus. Had a lot of doctor's appointments and stuff like that. Hopefully everything works out. But I'm back, and I'm going to try to hammer out a quick podcast today. Want to talk hockey, and I'm going to review my bets and also just a few things about daily fantasy sports. It seems like that's dominating the headlines, and I just have a few comments, but it's hard to like say specific things with the news changing so often. But anyway, let's start by reviewing the bets from last week. And football wise, we had a really good week. All three disciplines combined was a solid winning week. And for the CFL season, the NFL season, and even the college season, I am up in all three disciplines. So very excited about that. We'll get into hockey after I review these football bets. So I'm going to start off with college, and that was a perfect week. I had 4 wagers, and they all won. Friday, we had UNLV Fresno over 48.5. That came in. Saturday noon, we had Memphis plus 10.5, and they won outright. We had the Oklahoma-Kansas State game over 51.5, and that was Oklahoma 55-0. It didn't finish like I thought it would, but this definitely scored enough points. And we had Utah -4, which was the biggest sweat of those 4 bets, but they pulled away in the fourth quarter and won comfortably. In the NFL, we've been doing a little more complicated wagering. I've been doing these arbitrage middle type bets where I bet two different spreads on the same side, and I've had some good success with those. We started last Thursday with the Saints, who beat Atlanta at home. We had them at -3 and plus 4.5, so we won both sides of that wager. The Saints are just, Drew Brees has always been so much better at home, and Atlanta had run really well. It was one of those games where you kind of thought variance would catch up with them. And then on Sunday, we had the Pittsburgh -3.5 and plus 10.5, and they also won outright going away. I thought I had a really good chance of profiting by splitting that wager, but I won both halves, so that was great as well. I swept that one. We had Denver -3, which pushed. I was a little mad at myself for not getting the better number there. It was just the price on the -2.5 was just too high. I think it was around -140, and I wasn't going to take that when I could get -3 at about 115. So we pushed there. I said in my Twitter post that was kind of a square bet. And, Peyton has really struggled lately. Hopefully they can get that run game going. Had the Carolina-Seattle game over 40.5. I didn't think Carolina was going to win, but that finished over pretty comfortably. And then on Monday night, I took the Giants -3.5 and plus 4.5. And I really expected that game to be a lot closer. What a turnover fest that was. And that's the way it goes sometimes. My model did have the Eagles is a 2.5 favorite, so I didn't think it was out of the question for the Giants to cover there, but it just didn't happen. So we had, if you added all those up, that was a 5-2-1 week on all the sides there. And then in the CFL, we went 0-1. We had Ottawa +4, and that was the bad beat of the week, and I really can't complain about it. Given that I won on the last play of the game the week before. But Ottawa was up 27-9 with less than 3 minutes left, and they gave up 15 points in the last 1 minute and 16 seconds of the game. So the game ended 27-24, and I lost the -4 by a point. So that's what happens. That's CFL for you. A very exciting game, even when you think it's not a game at all. It can be a game really quickly. So, good week, good football season going so far. Just going to stick to my game plan and keep doing the same thing. But I want to talk about hockey, and I've actually have been betting hockey for about a week now. It's been a slow start. I'm down a few units. It's much more of a grind than the football is. Football is more of a weekly or a couple times a week endeavor, where NHL is you can bet, pretty much every day, definitely 5 out of 7 days of the week, most likely 6 out of 7. And hockey offers, because it's a sport like baseball where there's a lot of close games, a lot of one-goal games, it offers generous dog odds. So when we handicap hockey, we're not really considering winning percentage at all. It's really more about finishing with positive gains. If you bet on a team at plus 200 odds to win a hockey game, you're breaking even if you win that 1 out of 3 times. So if you were over 33%. And now if you're betting at plus 233, you'll be profitable at 30%. So if you bet only 3 out of 10 times, you'd still be making money overall. So the point I'm trying to make here is that it's not about a winning percentage. In fact, usually in hockey, my winning percentages waver between 40 and 50%, maybe sometimes in 38, 39%. But that doesn't mean we can't have winning periods with those types of numbers. And when I try each new season sports betting, I try to have a plan of attack in mind. And what I'm thinking right now with hockey is kind of a two-pronged attack. I really originally was going to do exclusively totals, and I'm going to talk more about totals in a minute. But with the success that I've had using the alternate spreads in the NFL, I'm going to try and experiment with the same concept in the NHL. And it's not that simple to do with hockey. It's a bit more complicated because basically with football, you can go on the sports book and you can see the standard line, Denver -3, Cleveland +3. But then they have alternate handicaps. You can get Denver plus or minus 10.5. You can get, you can choose pretty much any number in between if you're willing to pay the odds that the sports book is offering. So you can look at what your model says and say, I think, Denver is 8.5 point favorite by my model. So, I'll take Denver -4, that's a good play for me. So you can mess with all the different point spreads. Now in hockey, there really isn't that much to choose from. You have basically 3 options. You have the money line, which is which team to win, which includes overtime. You have what's called the puck line, which it's either plus 1.5 or minus 1.5. And roughly 45% of NHL games are 1-goal games, by the way. So, if you take the puck line, you're facing a pretty high odd that it's going to be a 1-goal game. And that doesn't even consider the fact whether the 2-goal game you need is going to be in your direction or the other direction. So, and then there's regulation time, and you can do regulation time in 2 ways. You can bet regulation time money line, where if the game goes to overtime, you push your bet and you just get your bet back. Or you can do the plus 0.5 goal or minus 0.5 goal. So the idea behind that is if you take, if I'm betting on the Sabres plus 0.5, if the game goes to overtime, I win the wager. If they lose by 1 in regulation or lose by more than 1 in regulation, I would lose the wager. And of course, if they win the game, I win the wager. So you can play with different bets, and pretty much the premium way to attack this is to take a 2-leg bet with the ARB middle thing I've been doing with a minus 1.5 puck line wager, which is usually a generous odds like plus 200, sometimes plus 250, with a regulation time plus 0.05 wager. So you can ARB that, you put that in an arbitrage calculator, and if you split those wagers, you make a profit. But if you sweep the wagers, you'll make a healthy profit. Some people would just prefer to bet the minus 1.5 and roll the dice. and that's fine. But I would be more inclined to split the wagers every night and make a little bit of profit and just build up units over the course of the season, and then just trying to spot bet for a big score. So I'm going to experiment more with these two-leg NHL wagers, and I'll post them on my Twitter page at Buffalo Hold'em if you're interested in following along. And I'm also going to continue to play totals on NHL, and I want to talk about the totals for a few minutes. In an NHL, if you play NHL Daily Fantasy, you know this to be true, but empty net goals are so crucial to NHL Fantasy and to NHL sports betting. And I'm going to give you some numbers here that I can't present a white paper to back them all up, but from my research, 5 is the most common number in hockey for a total. You'll see that posted a lot. Most totals are 5 or 5.5. But going back to the empty net goal, it's such a crucial situation because if a game is 3-2, there will be an empty net goal situation. One team will pull their goalie and try to score the game tying goal, the team that's behind. And then the team that's ahead will have an empty net to shoot at. So going through the research I've done, roughly 10% of the time, the team that's trailing that pulls their goalie will score in an empty net goal situation. And roughly 33% of the time, the team that's winning will score an empty net goal. So if we add those numbers together, we get 43% of the time that scoring happens in an empty net goal situation, and 57% being the difference, where there's no scoring in the empty net goal situation. So we know that 5 is the most common total, and sometimes 5.5 is the total that's put out there, but at most sports books, you can bet both of those numbers pretty much any night. So my question is, what makes one worth playing over the other? Why would you want to play the 5.5 as opposed to the 5? Because you can push on the 5, but it doesn't pay as well. Well, we know that 5 is the most common scored number in hockey, and assuming it's a 3-2 game, and you need an empty net goal to win your over of 5.5, and we also know that the 43% chance of a score happening in that situation. Well, we just go over to our EV calculator and put in 43% chance of the bet winning, and you punch in different odds, and you'll figure out very quickly that you need roughly odds of plus 133 on an over 5.5 to create positive expectation, or for the EV, in other words, for the EV calculator to tell you that, hey, this bet has a positive expectation, you want to put some money on it. And that's why you're going to see on my timeline, I'll be playing a lot of over 5.5s when they're offering plus 133 or higher. Now, that's not a blind bet. I go into that with handicapping. I use my models to choose which games I think are going to go over 5 goals. And then I look at the odds to see which are offering the most attractive odds. Now, so it's not just a blind bet, but if you wonder why I play overs at 5.5, that's why. That's why, because the sportsbook is giving me a number that I think is an attractive number, and I think is going to win more often than not. Now, it's not just about overs. You can reverse engineer this thinking for unders. You know, if the over-under is 5 and you can get under 5 at even money, say plus 100, that can be a very good bet, especially if there's excellent goaltending in that game. Not only that, but there's an opportunity to push. So, you're thinking if you're getting plus 100 on under 5 and it's 57% chance that no empty net goal is going to be scored, well, those are good odds too. So it's very rare that you'll see an under 5 at plus money, but if you do, that's one to consider. And again, I don't consider it a blind bet. You've got to have some kind of handicapping, some kind of modeling to back that up. So that's my thoughts on hockey. It's going to be fun season for me. Unfortunately, this two-legged wager, our middle thing. I haven't really come up with an official name for it. Doesn't translate well to basketball, and we'll get into basketball in the next couple of weeks. But you won't see me doing that, playing multiple lines in basketball. Maybe try for a traditional middle on over-unders, but for hockey, we've got some good betting opportunities, and you can't think about it in terms of just wins or losses. You have to think about it in plus or minus units. So now, to wrap things up, I just want to say a couple of things about daily fantasy sports. We've got new news coming out every day, and we've got grassroots campaigns and lobbyists being hired and advisors being hired. Things are changing rapidly. We had people pulling out of Nevada, other states, Stars Draft pulling out of everywhere but 4 states. We're up to 17 class action lawsuits, 3 federal level investigations. You know, it just seems like the regulatory hammer is going to drop fairly quickly. The Black Friday prosecutor is apparently looking into daily fantasy sports. So it's looking a little grim right now for the wild, wild west unregulated daily fantasy as we know it. It's even possible that daily fantasy will be out of New York State soon and I won't be able to play anymore. Besides all that going on, I don't really want to talk about any of that. What I want to talk about is how people are reacting to it. And there's a lot of finger pointing going on right now. A lot of people are like, if regulation is bad, self-regulation is the way, regulation is good. I'm a regulation guy. I think it's necessary. The bottom line here is the industry brought all of this on themselves, and I don't think anybody can argue that point. You know, they got what they originally wished for here, which was a huge explosion in growth. They grew by leaps and bounds over a 2 to 3 year period. The problem is they were unprepared. The industry was unprepared to handle any adverse marketplace reaction. When they got as big as they did, that they were blowing up with all these advertisements, when they got national negative press, they couldn't handle the backlash. Simply put, they were short-sighted and unprepared. You would think that they were in financial bed with all the leagues and major industries, but at the same time they weren't in bed with the politicians, the lobbyists, or proper PR crisis management. They weren't prepared at all. What really pains me, and it's just sad, and for lack of a better term, it's weak sauce to see, daily fantasy industry people or daily fantasy insiders go on a round table and lament about not being able to control the narrative or worry about losing their jobs. It's going to cost so many people jobs. They chose this high-risk, unregulated career to begin with. I don't understand. It's like, I hope I'm getting into this entrepreneurial venture, and I hope it works out. And then it exploded, and now they expect it to provide a living for them. Well, people face that problem every day, regardless of what your career is. I feel like it's being super disingenuous, and it's not a good look for these guys to go on and to ask for the common man's help to march on regulatory agencies to write letters to save their golden goose. It's just a horrible look. Maybe I'm guilty a little bit of doing this right now, but name calling and claiming haters with agenda against daily fantasy sports solves nothing. I don't like the way people are finger pointing and name calling, and I'm trying not to be a name caller, but just calling people haters or calling people out saying they have an agenda against daily fantasy sports, it doesn't help the situation. It's just crying over spilt milk. You need to say, what's the plan going forward? You need to say, we need to find a common ground. That's how constructive things are going to happen. the stuff that's going on, on Twitter and all the major media outlets, the podcast, satellite radio, etc. It's really just not constructive, and I don't know, burn it all down, I guess, and build it back up again. Maybe that's the best solution. Hopefully regulation will bring a safer game of skill into daily fantasy sports. That's what I'm hoping for. And I think, you have the issue of higher rake. I don't think higher rake would be an issue for the Sharks at all, so they shouldn't really be upset about that. They just want to be able to do their thing. And I would love a skill game to come back, especially snake drafts. All know how I feel about that. And you know what? There might be a legislative breakthrough that would allow expanded sports betting in the U.S., and that might be the best thing to come out of this daily fantasy stuff that we're all going through right now. And that would make me super happy. So that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry I missed last week. Hope to have some more interesting topics for you next week. And once again, you can follow me on Twitter at Buffalo Hold'em. I put all my picks up there. And follow the podcast at BLNowPod and BLNowPod.com. So enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you next week. Until next time, bet like no one's watching. Take care.